Hey everyone, welcome to the DXdao community call for May 6, 2021. Today we're going to try a slightly different format from our last call. We're going to be doing some topics followed by open discussion, which should hopefully help the flow a little bit better. So yeah, let's get right into it. First up on the agenda is the Dxd Token update. Maybe John can give a quick recap and we can ask some questions.
Sure. Yeah, I made a post last weekend kind of covering some ideas that have been floating around in the community. Kind of the main takeaways are replacing the current bonding curve contract, which is the same as the DXd token contract. It's the same contract. Since it's really not being used these days after minting has been paused, and since the sell price is lower than the market price, it's not serving much purpose. It's also, just generally not being utilized. And there's 2,499 ether sitting in the buyback reserve. So the idea would be to recover that. And since its intention all along was to act as like a floor for the DXD price and allow people to sell into the curve, I think it only makes sense that it would go into a buyback of DXD from the open market and basically replace this mint and burn model that the curve has with the buyback reserve with just a more general either like buyback and burn or buyback and hold, or it could be a blend of the two where some portion is burnt and some portion is held for future incentive programs, etc. And then the second part is to kind of touch on the product tokens and how that could work. I think in general, there's kind of two options. One is, with token models, you can do a mint and burn, or you can send fees to a staking contract and let people get their portion of the fees by staking the product tokens. I think people have been, in general, favoring this idea of using a staking contract to distribute the share of the protocol fees to the product token. And the way DXD would benefit from this and realize its share of those protocol fees would be either by the tokens that DXdao holds being in the staking contract, or I think what is in my view more favorable, having these staking contracts recognize the DXdao treasury and sending the portion of protocol fees that belong to the tokens of the DXdao treasury either to the treasury or to an automated buyback system where they can be used to buy back and burn / hold DXD off of the open market. So I think that's basically a summary. Happy to expand upon any of that if people have questions.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, this is the point where anyone's welcome to raise some questions. I have a couple on my end in the absence of any live, so feel free to shoot anything on the new DXD token model. And you may also use the chat. So nothing immediately. A question I got before the call is, when should we expect the 2,500 ETH to start being used?
Right. So one of the ideas I touch on in this post is how that could be managed, right, by DXdao. So in order to replace the curve, it's an upgradable contract. So the contract would need to be changed out basically for a new token contract. And even if that new token contract is a standard, pretty simple token contract, the process will be somewhat involved because we'll need to do audits, we'll need to do enough testing, then you got to go through the voting process, etc. And with all the dev resources being pretty much consumed and like flat out working on the existing product initiatives, I was suggesting that it's to not make it a priority to replace the bonding curve contract right away. But because there's more ETH in the DXdao treasury, any kind of planned incorporation into the buyback program would be initiated as soon as possible, as soon as consensus is achieved, using those funds with the understanding that when the bonding curve is replaced, those treasury funds would then be replenished through those 2,499 ETH that are being moved over from the bonding curve contract.
Awesome.
Yeah, just wanted to say that an important thing is that the token contract is going to be upgraded, which means that we are going to have exactly the same address. So the address is going to be the same. There is not going to be any funky migration or nothing like that. We just need to figure out how we're going to upgrade the existing token contract. And yeah, the address will be the same, which is very important because it can cause big issues if you want to do a migration.
It looks like VRF says that he didn't get a clear answer to when we can expect to use the 2,500 ETH.
So to summarize, like to get the 2,499 ETH out, that upgrade needs to be done to the contract. The contract address stays the same, as Augusto just said. Like I said, I don't think it should be a priority now, so I wouldn't want to give a timeline. But I think it could be used like at basically any time. Like the money could basically be fronted by the treasury at any time. So there's really nothing blocking the implementation of a buyback that includes that amount of funds. So the short answer to the question is today. We could do it today. Or
Yeah, it fits pretty well with the currently active proposal to approve a buyback of I think 1 million USD of DXD. We could just add the huge buyback to this buyback program, which we will start very soon. So we could, like John already said, use the ETH from the treasury, and don't need to rush about changing the bonding curve right away. And and I think it fits pretty well with the buyback program, hopefully getting approved by the DXdao. And I think we should start right ahead by actually using the ETH from the treasury to buy back DXD and actually burn it.
Awesome. Maybe, John, you could restate for those of us listening from home the answer you just gave in the chat there.
So this is to the question of Mango, does upgrading the contract impact bridged tokens, for example, to XDAI? And this is just basically repeating what Augusto said. The contract address stays the same, and therefore is no impact to any kind of integration, including bridges.
Excellent, thank you. Anything else on the Dxd token update?
Yeah, I think another thing we can mention is there was a DXD holder who sent USDC to the token address from DXD. So there's currently, I think, more than 100K of USDC stuck into the Dxd token contract address, and that's something I think we should include in the plan of positioning from the active unusable bonding curve to the standard token contracts, including a plan to get back those USDC to the user. But again, this is like adding something to like the priority list, which should be very low from our side because we actually need to focus on getting products out.
On that end, I can say that the user who sent the funds contacted me, and he's working with the developer and share the changes of rescue ERC20 token that is already used in other ERC20 contracts because this happens. So there are already different tokens that have this rescue ERC20 balance from an ERC20 smart contract implemented, and it works, and they didn't have any issues. So that should be fairly simple to implement once we upgrade our existing Dxd token. So I guess we will have no issue of adding that function once we upgrade it.
Perfect. Awesome, guys. Let's move on to the next topic here, and that's the upcoming Swapper beta launch. Maybe Zet, you could chime in with some insight as to how development's going and possibly some timelines.
Yeah, sure. So the Swapper community Xdao farming test ended this week. We gathered feedback both via forums and from chats and DMs, and we did some internal testing too, where we also gathered some feedback, and there were no major bugs or no bugs at all. Some UI UX stuff that we are changing, but we also doing some contract security stuff. John, maybe you can talk a little bit about the process we have now with how we gonna deploy Swapper beta.
Right, so we had that live test on Xdao with Swapper farming contracts. Everything went very well and performed as expected. There just have been some optimizations that were identified in terms of like gas savings, and there's also a different upgradability pattern that's more trustless that we think we should do. So we're just in the process of implementing those changes and getting them reviewed before the official beta release. So it's more just about like making a few optimizations and creating a more trustless upgradability pattern. I could go into the technicals, but it's probably not appropriate for taking time on this call for that.
Okay, thanks, John. So we expect Swapper beta to be live next week, end of next week. That's the expected date.
Well, the release would be made at the end of next week, right? And then usually it's a few days, 4 or 5 days till it goes live on swapper.eth.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. You've actually answered one of the community questions, being the date. Another fun question actually is, should we expect a Swapper token for the beta launch?
No. We are still in the planning phase, and the Swapper token is not official, even though we're talking about it and planning it. I would say it's we are trying to get that process faster and sooner than we expected earlier. So Swapper token news will be out hopefully this month, but obviously we don't know that yet. So wait for more information.
Awesome, thanks. And I guess one last question. This one is from Anonymous and isn't necessarily related to the beta launch, but they ask, what is conditional farming and why is it useful?
Ooh, this is a hard one. I'll let John take
awesome.
this.
Federico is not here because I know he's really done some cool thinking on this idea. But yeah, so I'll try to explain. So the idea of conditional farming is to use tokens that only become worth something under, when some condition is met. So this is using the same underlying technology that powers Omen, right? So that is powering prediction markets. You basically create a condition, say, will the DXd ETH pair reach $2 million in liquidity by the end of the month? Okay, you can mint a token for that condition, and then you can provide that token and when you mint that, you're providing some collateral, right? So say maybe the DXdao treasury provides some DXD or Ether or DAI or whatever as collateral to this prediction market, essentially, right? And you mint this conditional token. There's a yes and a no token, right? So what DXdao wants to do is incentivize people to meet that yes condition, which is to reach the goal of $2 million in liquidity. And the way DXdao can now do this is, and just to back up, the yes or no tokens, only one of those is going to be worth something when the market is resolved, because it's either going to meet the condition and then the yes tokens are redeemable for the collateral, or it's not going to meet the condition and then the no tokens are redeemable from the collateral. And then the other token is just worthless, right? So what DXdao does is it holds the no tokens, right? And so if the condition is not met, DXdao just gets its collateral back. And then it takes the yes tokens, it puts those into a farming campaign on Swapper, the same farming campaigns that anybody is going to be able to create once beta is live. So there would be a farming campaign with a reward token that is this conditional yes for meeting 2 million into the pool. And so people are getting these conditional tokens as rewards, and if the goal is met, those rewards are actually redeemable for the collateral. So yeah, that's the basic idea. I imagine in the future we would maybe pilot the idea without having proper UI around it, but then eventually we could build a UI that would support people doing the redemptions, etc., seeing the values. Something like this, I think, even could potentially be its own product, maybe, but maybe it would just be built into Swapper.
Awesome. And I guess a follow-up question I have, based off ThurfNoob's comment, will conditional farming be usable on all chains, Ergo, Mainnet, Xdai, Arbitrum?
Yeah, it would be usable for sure on Mainnet and Xdai, and I don't think there would be any reason why it wouldn't be usable on Arbitrum. Yeah. So there's 1155 is the token standard that the conditional farming, the conditional token framework mints tokens under, and I think that the most usable implementation would be for us to wrap those into ERC20s, and then people could interact with those. So you could even imagine a secondary market for these conditional tokens, right? Like you're mining and collecting the yes token, and maybe some people just want to sell it right away. And so it could be sold on a Swapper market at a little bit of a discount to what it would be worth if the condition is met.
Awesome. Any other questions on the Swapper beta?
What's exciting about Swapper beta is also we are not just working on farming, even though farming is the biggest feature out there. We're doing some really nice UI, UX changes. So I'm actually really excited showing you Swapper beta. It's gonna be really good.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Zet and John.
For sure.
Actually, we look like we have one last question from Thurf. What about the routing algorithm? Is it planning on being improved?
We added when we forked Uniswap, there were no setting to turn off hops or not, and we brought that back to the dApp. So now you can turn off hopping. So on Mainnet we had some issues there where we looking for the highest output, which also might give you most hops, right? So that wasn't very effective with the gas. And now we fixed that with the setting of being able to turn off hops, but that's not the solution. I would say we need some more improvements on that, being able to calculate the gas together with the output. But for Swapper Beta, no, we have focused on farming mostly.
Yeah, to expand on that answer, so Seth just described it, one of the improvements. I think what is coming out in Swapper Beta is the incorporation of Levin swap as an option on XDAI. And what I suspect maybe the RF noob, he's actually asking more questions, but like I think a potential next iteration on the eco routing would be to allow for trades to actually go across the different exchanges. Right now it's showing you what the trade would look like on each of the different exchanges, but you have to select one of the exchanges and the trade can only happen within that exchange, right? It's only going to happen on Uniswap or Swapper or SushiSwap, right? It's not going to actually go across the exchanges like you might see in like a traditional aggregator like 1inch. But like moving in that direction, I could see being something that gets on the product roadmap in the future. I can't, there's no formal plans on that, so like no date or anything, but I could see that being the next iteration on the routing.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. Moving along here, we'll be chatting about the Omen Guild and Omen token update shared on the forum a few days ago. Tammy, are you here?
Hi, I'm here.
Excellent. Would you mind sharing some details?
Of course. Since January, DXdao and the Omen squad, led by Geronimo, has been formulating a plan to incentivize governance of Omen in order to curate and verify markets, as well as incentivize liquidity provision on markets through a decentralized governance platform built into Omen. So what better way to do that than to use a token? So Omen token was initially discussed by, I think, John in a post in coordination with other contributors back in January. The main broad strokes in the post were put there regarding token distribution and decentralization of governance. And since then, we've been working on planning some uses for the token within the UI to basically help with market verification issues. I think Omen will be still using Claros Curate to help with some of the verification and curation issues that come up with market validity issues. But now we're getting the guild involved through decentralized governance to have the guild review and decide and flag which markets may be not valid anymore. And the guild can then vote on those issues, and by participating in governance, they're going to be rewarded with Omen token. A similar governance structure is actually going to be used for our liquidity incentives program at launch of the token. So we're going to be having the guild vote on markets that are created to decide which markets should receive liquidity rewards. So there's a lot of ways that people can, once they get token, either on Swapper, maybe they get an airdrop, who knows, but they should definitely take their tokens, lock them in the governance contract, and basically kind of help build and make Omen better. And so with that, we've worked on just some basic distribution questions. We're still doing 70% of Omen token is going to be held by DXdao. Of course, DXdao is like one of the only on-chain true DAOs out there. We have a proven governance model. So by holding these tokens, it's kind of a symbolic nod to DXD holders who basically funded DXdao and have basically pushed forward the efforts of Omen. And so this is also going to be kind of what's something that John touched on earlier regarding that snapshot was done on May 1st. So if you provided liquidity on Omen or have traded on Omen on basically any time until May 1st, there should be some expectation of an airdrop. And then we're also doing a DXd holder airdrop, as well as a friendly airdrop, which is still kind of to be determined as to essentially, for example, Omen now lives on DxdAI, so there are other users on DxdAI, other dApps that we would like to incentivize those users to come over and try out Omen. So things like that to kind of spread the love and decentralize the governance of Omen.
Okay. Yeah, anyway, we have to be very careful how we spread the love, because you can actually get make things very messy, like how the airdrops are done. We have to make sure that we distribute Omen tokens to people who contributed to Omen time and money. The time will be the ones who, well, have been using Omen, like providing liquidity, well, you describe them, and DXd holders, right? So,
yep.
Awesome.
Exactly. That's why we're doing an airdrop to Omen users and Omen liquidity providers. The friendly airdrop is actually something that we're supposed to be doing that's similar to a vampire attack, but we liked the friendly airdrop terminology because it's more so incentivizing users that we think would enjoy Omen and haven't come to Omen yet in the DeFi ecosystem.
We have another question from DAO merchants. Will the parameters for the airdrop change? It was abused by airdrop farmers, and some people placed genuine bets but were ineligible.
I don't think we don't have specific parameters regarding anything more than that Omen users who basically, as long as they had a prediction trade that totaled $25, they would receive an airdrop. The airdrops are not going to be weighted for users. And that same standard is going to be applied to liquidity providers. I'm not sure specifically if there's something I'm missing here historically regarding abuses aside from like multiple accounts made and things like that. But that's something we are aware of and are trying to account for with the limited data that we do have on the Omen user base.
Yeah, so the next steps are like the proposal of DAO is a draft proposal, but what we're currently focusing on is actually getting a list of addresses which are like part of the airdrop, specifically LP providers and simple traders, and if the data looks acceptable, and I think that is also something we're going to publish on DAO, and yeah, then we can discuss it further if we should lower the
But no,
a Fat Boy Slim song.
No, but I think like Geronimo said, we're definitely going to analyze. We're going to do the snapshot based off of May 1st, and we are going to look and see if there's some sort of abuse that's happened. Or I think there's been some like penny-sized trades made and things like that. Unfortunately, those users would not be counted in the airdrop. And yeah, this is basically the first step. So if there's any suggestions that people have regarding like issues with abuse when it comes to airdrops that we should be looking at more closely, that'd be great to either mention it here on Discord or even go to the post and put a link, because this is definitely still a organic process.
So those of us who know Geronimo have seen this. I like to call it DJ Geronimo when his AirPods malfunction and go into this weird loop. But yeah, I mean, I think so. So Kevin, if I understand correctly, right? Like the forensics hasn't been like. Has kind of only been done preliminarily, and like the main idea here is to like prevent people who are like manipulating, right? So if we look more closely, and it the manipulation threshold is like less than 25 from what we can see, I wouldn't see a problem with like lowering it right before this is formalized. But I guess that needs some more inspection.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like Geronimo said, the idea would be to post that information publicly and make sure everything's vetted appropriately before we go forward with the drop.
What?
Darn.
Another question from Anonymous. When will the airdrop snapshot for DXD holders be?
No, that's to be determined. Mainly because there's no reason to make it immediately. A cutoff, I think it'll kind of be announced after actually doing the snapshot, I think, unless anyone else has any opposing opinions about that. And maybe I'm assuming Geronimo could also add some information here, and once his headphones start working, that'd be also useful. Darn.
So back to the intent of the cutoffs and the snapshot being to prevent manipulation with DXD. I guess what's the harm really in having the snapshot in the future, right? If people want to buy DXD knowing that there's an airdrop, or want to sell DXD knowing that there's an airdrop, it's not really you can't do the same kind of spam attack as you could with trading, creating multiple accounts, etc. You actually have to buy the DXD. So,
and also something to note: the intention is to have the DXD holder airdrop weighted based off of the amount held. So, again, like John said, there's no harm, and there's going to be some weighting factors there. So, but not with, of course, the Omen user or Omen LP airdrop. It will not be weighted.
Awesome. One last question I got from before the call. Who exactly is eligible for the friendly airdrop?
So there's been discussion of some other dApps on Arbitrum, as well as maybe some high interest users of prediction markets on other chains. We're just still kind of exploring that area. And if people have suggestions about who they think would be a good candidate for a friendly airdrop, that would be something I think that the working group and Omen team and DXdao team would consider.
And Tammy, you said Arbitrum, but I think you may have meant Xdai. I'm not sure.
I did mean Xdai. Thank you. Yeah, I did mean thank you. Thank you, John. Yeah, Xdai. Because Arbitrum's not up yet.
Actually, we have one last question from Thurf Noob in the comments. He asks, I've heard that Genosis will support conditional tokens and especially Omen. How will this work?
So that's actually an interesting question. There was a Genosis DAO post recently. Darn.
I'm going to buy Geronimo some new headphones and overnight.
She wants wood, give him some wood.
Is it working now? Geronimo, are you there? No. Okay. So I'm going to continue then. So there was a proposal on the Genosis DAO platform recently, governance, to provide quite a bit of liquidity like incentives to Omen, or any prediction market for that matter. It was a very large amount of funds, and so they actually weren't able to reach quorum to pass that proposal. The Omen team just basically also posted on that forum saying, of course, this is what's good for any liquidity provision on Omen is good for everyone. So liquidity incentives can be a win-win, for both Genosis DAO and for Omen and DXdao. So there could be potential for collaboration in the future on some sort of liquidity incentives program, but it's all actually very up in the air at this point. We're just kind of speaking through the forums and seeing how things kind of pan out on that.
Right. Martin signaled the amount was much. I think we should still do as best as we can to make sure there will be a joint liquidity campaign with GNO in combination with Omen token. So I think, the this potential partnership is definitely something we're like strongly supporting and trying to make sure it actually gonna happen.
Exactly.
Because
and we would support them.
Yeah, we had issues in the past with getting aligned with Gnosis in general, like longer term partnerships, but that doesn't mean this is something like has any influence in the current potentially joint liquidity mining campaign. It is a win-win for both. We are using a lot of Gnosis technology. Gnosis Safe Proxy Kit is on the front end, which is a very powerful tool. We're using conditional token framework on the Solidity side of things. So it is a win-win. If we can't achieve that, then we failed and Gnosis failed. So we need to make sure it will happen.
Yep.
And I think one of the interesting questions that came up in that forum post for the Gnosis DAO was how they would benefit from the conditional token framework, like where they could introduce some fees or whatnot, right? And I don't think that question was really answered in that forum post. And yeah, as you know, I believe they're actually immutable contracts on Ethereum. So if fees were to be introduced at the smart contract level for the conditional token framework, I think new contracts would have to be deployed, which honestly would not necessarily be crazy to do for prediction markets, since they in general don't tend to last for a very long time, right? So unlike something like Uniswap, where you have a ton of liquidity just kind of indefinitely in a contract that would need to be migrated over, I think with prediction markets, you could just potentially roll over to a new system and have new markets use the new system.
Great, thank you guys. Moving on here, we'll be talking about the Dxd Buyback. So maybe Chris, you could get us started by chatting about the Dxd Buyback forum post you'd putting up.
Sure. And this forum post is actually now a live signal proposal on both Mainnet and Dxdao. I think it's still a couple more hours for it to boost. But this is a signal proposal that's been discussed a lot in the community to start a Dxd Buyback Program. The short of it is this program would allow DXdao to use up to $1 million from its treasury to repurchase DXD on the open market on either Dxdao or Mainnet. So this should hopefully pass in the next week on Mainnet and a couple days before on Dxdao, and then we'll be able to start the execution plan on fulfilling the buyback itself. I think there are kind of three interesting, broad points in terms of the buyback program, kind of what it means for DXdao. I think first is it creates it begins to align interests more and more between rep holders and DXD holders, and I think this is a process that we've been undergoing over a long time. Right? Today, I don't know if people are aware, is DXD's 1 year anniversary, and I think we've taken a lot of steps along the way as kind of figuring out how to combine reputation and DXD, and ultimately this will culminate in the governance 2.0 system. And I think it also, the next step in that also kind of coincides with a lot of things that John was saying earlier about upgrading the token model and making DXD kind of an integral part about this. So I think this buyback program is an important part of kind of signaling to the market that further allegiance. And then I think second, technically, this is just really trailblazing new areas for DAOs. There's a lot of cool things being done here to allow the DAO to do this buyback trustlessly, being able to do it on 2 different networks, being able to place it through a proposal, I think is really, really cool and really putting, I think driving DAOs forward in a lot of ways. And I think it's awesome that DXdao is leading it. And I think third is terms and transparency and how we can kind of come to these decisions. And this is kind of, I think, the purpose of the signal proposal and some of the documents to prepare is just like, how can a DAO itself come to a decision like this, which obviously has financial implications, but try to do it in a transparent way to all parties involved. So I think this is an exciting initiative that will kind of kickstart a lot of different things going on. And so in terms of a timeline, we can talk about this from the community once this proposal passes, how to execute. There seems to be soft consensus of trying to do the first buyback actually on XDAI, because on XDAI, the DXdao base does not have a whitelist for the contracts that it can interact with for the multi-call scheme. So we'd be able to institute a buyback, start the buyback proposal process just as soon as the signal proposal passed. But the intention, I think, is to do the buyback both on XDAI and on Mainnet. So yeah, that's kind of where things are at for the signal proposal. I don't know if people had questions on that or anyone else wanted to talk about the technical implementation of this and some of the interesting things that were developed for that.
Actually, we have another question from DAO Merchants. He asks, will there be another vote for a second buyback after the 1 million buy happens?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, so the 1 million buy will be, I guess, phased in. So in the buyback program, we said it's only up to 25% of the average daily volume. So right now that's like $35,000 to $40,000. Presumably this will have an effect on the daily trading volume of DXD, and so we can increase that. But that will take a little bit of time to do. And then I think the next round buyback program would probably be part of the larger conversation that we're talking about upgrading the token model. That's where we have another opportunity to really create like a long-term program and a long-term alignment on like how DXD kind of accrues value. But I think this program is meant to like create that right now as we build like a longer-term solution.
And one last question from Anonymous left to me beforehand. He asks, why was 1 million chosen for the buyback?
Austin Powers is a great movie. I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good reason where 1 million landed. I can't really think of where the source of that was. I think we were just, thinking about different areas where part of this was, I think, the size of the treasury maybe has gone up a little bit, and so maybe it was a portion of the treasury, but I can't actually remember like how we specifically landed on that number.
Yeah, Chris, maybe I can just add a slight bit of information. The idea was just to, because as Chris already touched on, the reason that we're doing the buyback is because we believe that DXD is intrinsically undervalued. And the point is we would, for this program, not for the more expansive program, that's still up for debate, we would stop, hypothetically, the buyback program if DXD were to meet book value. So there's just a lot of questions of fluctuation in the price of ETH. And like Chris mentioned, the price of ETH has gone up quite a bit based on our treasury supply. So it just gives some flexibility for the program depending on future unknown factors.
Yeah, and just because I realized I wasn't clear, so it's 1 million up to when the DXD circulating supply is equal to the book value of DXDAO's treasury.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris and Tammy. Moving along here to the final segment, open questions. Anyone's welcome to ask anything they'd like. And I do have a couple of questions that were left before the meeting today. We'll start off with one from Tom FR. What will be the next product to develop after Swapper, Mesa, and Omen?
I can talk a little bit. So yeah, the 3 product initiatives now are Omen, Swapper, Mesa, and then there's a little bit being done around governance work, Augusto leading that effort up. And that obviously is very important for sustainability and operation of the DAO. And I would comment, that I think the intention, with the capital raised, et cetera, was and is to build products. And I think unfortunately, DAOstack as a platform didn't really keep pace with DXdao and hasn't really evolved much, which has sort of forced DXdao's hand to get more involved in the governance. But I think ultimately that's a good thing and will allow DXdao to lead around not just how we do governance, but in the platform itself. So beyond Omen, Mesa, and Swapper, I don't think there's been much thought or talk about that recently, because there's a lot on our plates just working on those, obviously, and it's been a little bit difficult to recruit new developer resources. I think we've come a long way. We've got almost 10 developers now, and all very great and passionate, but it has been a little bit difficult to expand aggressively, and so I think that's one factor here. But I do imagine that after some of the big milestones are met with Omen, Swapper, and Mesa, that we can start looking elsewhere and what would be next. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of ideas. I think it would probably be something in DeFi. I think something like a lending protocol is maybe sort of an obvious, but maybe too crowded choice. I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with layer 2s. I think that opens up a lot of new opportunities. I think some of the aspects of DeFi that maybe have not received a lot of traction on layer 1 might start to see better traction on layer 2s. I'm thinking options protocol, perpetual swaps, those kinds of things. But I think it's wide open, and the discussion really hasn't really even begun.
Yeah, and what I think is I think we're just starting to actually use the DXdao system as an advantage for our products, and that's going to happen with the guild, the Omen product. To be honest, the main goal for the guild was to make Omen the platform, the prediction market platform, actually way better as it is right now. And hopefully we will achieve that. And this is also something where I want to see existing products and upcoming products, specifically Mesa. It's still not a purely untouchable IDO platform out, and I think DXdao is 100% the best suited to provide an awesome experience for token issuer and IDO participants. And I think Mesa is something I think could be a very unique service for the whole crypto ecosystem. And then that is achieved, leveraging the DXdao or potentially a new guild to make Mesa better, this interconnection between Swapper and Mesa could be also very beneficial for both products.
Awesome. I've got another question here from Anonymous. Someone mentioned reworking Rails. Is this still happening?
I guess I can jump in. Okay, go ahead, Zed.
I mean, Federico's not here. Federico is product manager for Rails, but me and Federico's working on Swapper, and basically we had an idea of doing Rails 2.0 because Rails as it is today is not working with the new version of Loopring. The rework we thought about is making Rails L1 to L2 wallet / bridge, and the first use case would be Swapper. I would say what we are creating for Swapper with the bridge and the wallet that we still don't have. And when I say wallet, it's like a dashboard where you see your tokens both on L1s and L2s. That might be Rails 2.0, but we will still build it for Swapper first. So it could be a standalone thing as Rails, and Rails could be used as a plugin to other dApps. So we could use it for Omen or use it for Mesa, but we will still first build it for Swapper, and it's still not decided if that's Rails or not. But that's one idea at least.
And for people who might be wondering, what's going on with Rails, kind of the brief history of Rails is it was initially essentially a gift to the DXdao from Loopring. They ran a hackathon project where the first version of Rails was developed. That was actually Federico who won. Really, I think the best thing to happen to DXdao out of the Rails project is that Federico has joined and is just absolutely killing it on Swapper development. But yeah, like Rails itself is, I think, currently not being maintained or supported by DXdao. And yeah, it's built on the older version of Loopring. So, I mean, yeah, basically there wasn't enough bandwidth to continue development of that. And part of the reasoning around that was there was never really a clear business model for DXdao in developing this interface that is on top of the Loopring platform.
Federico was great too, but it also did kind of introduce us to layer 2 a lot too. And so it was kind of part of the DXdao layer 2 learning process.
Yeah, totally. Loopring's a great, genuine layer 2 that is live today. So it's a pretty awesome platform.
I would like to see in the chat, like what do the community want us to build, and what's their vision for DXdao? It would be interesting to see that.
Thurfnoob says, Swapper, Omen, and Mesa as integrated as possible.
Yeah, I mean, we're always planning to do that. That's why also I talked about Rails being the plug-in to all of these products that we have. If we have all our products on all side chains and have the same wallet connector, whatever it could be, bridging, transferring, and interacting in between all our products would be, I would say, easier. And obviously we don't need to rebuild everything every time we do something. So right now we're building Swapper on Xdai. Meanwhile, Omen also are building Omen on Xdai, and we're kind of doing a lot of the things twice, right? And hopefully we could work more as one team instead of working as separate teams.
And just to touch on some of the tie-ins that I think have been getting discussed from pretty early on, like you can easily imagine token sale, capital formation happening on the Mesa platform, liquidity rolling over into the Swapper platform, which also uses conditional token farming, which ties into prediction markets on Omen, and then and in turn Omen markets could trade on Swapper in a secondary market sense as well. So yeah, I mean, I think there's lots of opportunities where these integrate, tie together, and those are just some initial ideas. And I think as we develop all those products, there's going to be new opportunities.
Yeah. Also, I just wanted to say that we haven't been interacting, I think, a lot between our products because our governance platform, it has a lot of, if we want to call it, bureaucracy in the middle in order to add connections and to enable our governance to interact with the protocols that we created. And this is something that we are currently working on, that I'm currently working on creating a governance platform completely decentralized that is going to allow flexible connections to be done between our applications. And once we have this glue that attach it all together, we will be able, I think, to grow more as an, we can call it like a unified being, having a shit ton of money and a lot of products working on different networks. This is a requirement. This is a requirement. We need something to be able to connect all these protocols together. That will be our governance platform, and it's not doing that. So once
absolutely.
Once we fix that, I mean, we are going to see some crazy things happen because there are going to be a place for crazy things to happen and for us to connect on-chain on different platforms. So that is going to be, I think, the next step on the next layer for our organization. More like a corporation, right, of different products working together.
Exactly. Like DXdao is built on the DAOstack platform, but DAOstack is discontinuing support for Alchemy, and basically DXdao's hands are a bit tide on that platform, and Augusto is leading this effort to free us of those shackles and allow us to really move and live up to the potential of the DAO.
Yeah, in a way, it's similar to scaling L1 with L2s, and this tool is crucial for scaling governance. So it will be good for cohesion within apps and sub-DAOs, and it will be of enormous benefit to the whole DeFi ecosystem.
Awesome, guys. Looks like we're just out of time. Thank you, everyone, for being here. This is a great community call. Every other Thursday, we'll be having the community call from here on out. Last Thursday and this coming Thursday is the recap, and then the following Thursday after that is another community call. So thanks again, guys, and hope to see you all there.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.